Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Houston Inno's State of Innovation today about the future of 5G tech. My name is Chris Matthews. I am the editor at Houston Inno and a reporter here at the Houston Business Journal as well. Houston Inno is a part of a growing network of sites. We're currently in more than 40 markets across the country, with more coming soon. We're committed to covering and connecting local technology, startups, and innovation. So thank you all for following Inno. And if you're interested in founders, startups, or other funding news here or in other cities, you can find those at our website at houstoninno.com. Make sure that you are getting The Beat, our local newsletter. The Beat is the best way to stay plugged into everything that's impacting the local innovation economy. In it, you'll get the local tech and startup news you need, analysis you won't find anywhere else, info on upcoming events, cool job postings, and much, much more, all in a fun and conversational manner. I want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor for today, Accenture, who is proud to support local innovators, startups, businesses on their digital transformation journey. I would also like to thank our founding partners, the ION, the Village School, the University of St. Thomas, and Deloitte for supporting Houston Inno and helping us bring to you the local startup and tech stories that you need. So today we will be speaking with experts and founders about the future of 5G technology. We're going to talk about trends in 5G tech, how this technology is transforming businesses, business use cases, the future capabilities of 5G, and much, much more. As a reminder to our audience, you are on mute. However, if you have questions for our panel, please drop those in the questions box and we will address those during and or after this initial conversation. So don't forget to chat with us and engage. So I'd like to introduce our panel moderator for today, Heather Rex with Intel. Heather, thanks so much for being here today, and please take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having us. Very excited to be moderating the panel today. I'd first like to go around and introduce our panelists that we have on the line today. So I would like to start with Brian Richards of Accenture. Brian, would you please give us a brief introduction to yourself? As well as possibly give us, how your role in your business leverages 5G to fuel business transformations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Heather. So hello, everyone. Brian Richards. I'm a managing director for Accenture here in Houston. I moved to Houston in 2015. I founded and run our Houston Innovation Hub. So it's a little over 100 folks, data scientists, designers, developers. We take ideas from whiteboard to scale. Spent my entire career focused on innovation. One of the things we've been doing this year has been very heavily focused on 5G. And so we actually have been partnered with AT&T, building out a true millimeter wave 5G network here in our office, testing out edge computing and other things, and really trying to get towards what are the core value cases and the opportunities for our customers, our clients, to really utilize 5G in their own businesses. So excited to talk with you today.
Thanks, Brian. Next up, we have Werner Schaefer from Intel. Werner? Werner, I think you're on super secret mute. Still can't hear you, Werner. Okay, I will go to the next person. We have Ryan from Skylark Wireless. Ryan, would you please step in and introduce yourself, as well as talk about how your business and your role leverage the 5G to fuel your business transformation? I think you're also on mute, Ryan.
Also super secret mute, excuse me, guys. Ryan Guerra, co-founder and CEO of Skylark Wireless, and thank you for the heads up. We are a Houston startup that spun out of Rice University to go commercialize core 5G technologies. And we focus on building long-range 5G base stations and user equipment for the rural broadband market.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's check in back with Werner and see if we have some audio. Werner? Not yet. We still can't hear you.
Werner, can you try joining on your phone? Okay.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll just give the panelists Brian and Ryan a couple of questions while we're waiting for Werner to join, and then once we have him up and running, we will go ahead and give him his due time to introduce himself. So Brian, let's start with you. Why should the non-technical consumer or business person be excited about 5G?
It's a good question, right? I mean, I think throughout my entire life, and I think throughout all of our entire lives, we've seen the convergence of greater processing power, greater bandwidth leads to net new innovation. And if you think about when we went from 3G to 4G, and it opened up all sorts of new business models, right? It got made it possible for things like Netflix to stream on your phone, for Uber, for you to do real-time visualization of where a vehicle was. It allowed you to change your plane ticket. All sorts of different things suddenly became possible because of the mobile internet. When I look at 5G, there's kind of three things that get me excited, and it's higher bandwidth, more devices that can connect, and lower latency. And what that means for me is things like the net new business models around autonomous vehicles, or net new business models that are going to be possible around kind of the Internet of Things for industrial applications or otherwise, have thousands of sensors streaming information. It also means with greater bandwidth that I could download a feature-length film in a couple seconds. Like, what kind of things does that unlock? So it's still early days, but I think what gets me most excited about it from a kind of pure technical standpoint is what are those net new businesses that 5G is going to create that are unlike other things we've seen. And again, I expected an IoT and AI, a lot of extended reality, so things to be over-the-shoulder coaching or virtual reality that just have not been possible with our current network capability.
Great, yeah, some fantastic points there. It's definitely a big change of how we can, view everything on our phone all at once. You have your computer in your hand at all times. Thank you. Ryan, would you also like to weigh in?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to echo what Brian said. When I think somebody once said that when I think of the business opportunities for 5G, the question isn't why do I need always on high-speed fiber-like broadband everywhere I go, but what can I do with that? What are the applications that I can build once that's available to everybody without thinking about it? And so one of the areas, if I'm the end user, what we're looking forward to is having dead spots go away, high-speed broadband coverage spread from just the city now to rural markets, and actually meeting the needs of everybody in America, not just folks that might be in the middle of New York City. Or the other thing that you're going to start to see is when I hate trying to browse something at a conference or an event, a large sporting event, that congestion is going to go away. I'm going to see snappy performance. I'm actually going to be able to use and gather all this data instantaneously without the lags that we're used to before. So you're going to see some real value for the end user as well as these systems roll out and these technologies evolve.
Thanks, Ryan. And before we move to the second part of this question, I think Werner's back up. So Werner, if you are out there, let's do a brief introduction, please.
I am. Third time is a charm. So I hope you can hear me now. There we go. So wonderful thing, right? When IT pushes that BIOS update onto your system right before you go onto a conference video call, right? So here I am, Werner Schaefer, working for Intel. I'm responsible for our global communications segment. So we provide silicon to our beloved partners out there that build, on one hand, the infrastructure that we're all using for this, and on the other hand, that are the operators that are managing it and also obviously rolling it out. So very excited to be here, talk about 5G. And what I heard Brian and Ryan said, I think is exactly what I'm so excited about as well, to say, hey, how do we innovate with these new capabilities that we have here, right? 5G is not just another G. 5G is a game changer from the technical capabilities that are now being available to innovators out there. How can they use this new technology? And I'm eager to hear more from Brian and Ryan, what they're providing with their solutions that enables this technology really to change industries, to change, quite frankly, how we collaborate, how we work, and how we live around the world.
Thanks, Werner. So happy you could finally get on here with us. So I want to move into the second part of that question, right? So we've talked about how the non-technical consumer or business person and why they should be excited about them. But let's take that from a different perspective. And why should a technical person in all these different fields and verticals that utilize 5G, how should they be excited, or why should they be excited about it? And Let's work backwards this time. So Werner, if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, kind of in continuation, right? It's really the innovation that can come out of that. If you're a technologist, if you look at, what industry you're in today, if you're in manufacturing, if you're in healthcare, right? Try to dive into the capabilities, the low latencies, the bandwidth, the speed that is now available that may enable you to work on things that you haven't done before. What may not have been possible can be possible today. And what's even bigger is look at the whole ecosystem that surrounds 5G out there, the solutions providers, the companies that actually work these use cases. Accenture hosting us today is a great example for that. Their experience, they have the different practices. What is there for you to bring new solutions, new ideas and capabilities to your industry?
Absolutely. Ryan, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, so for the technical people, one of the biggest things for 5G is that now you have these capabilities, both on the network operator side, where I can improve my security quite significantly. I can virtualize pretty much all of my network functions. So that's a net reduction in cost for my OpEx and potentially quite a bit for CapEx as well. But then now I get to address all of the issues that I know I've had with my network buildouts in years previous. Again, addressing dead spots. There are regions in the US and 40 million Americans that don't have broadband because wireless technologies, 4G, could not reach them and provide that level of service. Now with 5G, we're reaching out to everybody and connecting them with high-speed capabilities and connectivity. Or I couldn't meet these application demands, and today now I can, and it's really that stark of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would add is I think, as a technical person, I would say, man, maybe I don't need to have simultaneously Wi-Fi, network, radio, et cetera, all out on my plant or at my office or what have you, right? I think 5G offers enough capability to say I could combine all of this, have a privatized 5G network, and my people are going to have great cell phone reception. They'll be on my private network. To the dead spots that Ryan talked about, all of that starts to build up and say that'll reduce my investment, and it opens up a lot of technical things I want to do. So, for example, over-the-shoulder coaching with wearables, right? Or bringing in fully virtualized VR environments for training, things like that may be very difficult to do without a network capability like 5G.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. It looks like we have a question out there from Scott Walton. And it says, do you believe that wireless tech such as next generation 5G could exceed the capabilities of compute platforms? If so, what innovations are underway to address this limitation? Brian, do you want to kick that off? You have any thoughts? I'm not sure if you can see it in the chat box.
Ryan probably may have a good point of view on that one.
Perfect. Okay, Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, so I think one of the opportunities, and this is specifically going towards the more virtualization of network functionality, network compute for 5G networks, is now I can push a lot of the computation that's been done typically in a server farm, say in Dallas, and I can push that to the edge at the tower. That reduces my latency, so now I can make very rapid decisions that involve, say, machine vision or machine learning or artificial intelligence. Now I can do that in a very short amount of time, and I can provide those capabilities to devices that might be small and battery limited. So I don't necessarily want to do that computation on the phone itself. I think you really look at two trends. The energy density of phones is not increasing as quickly as the compute capability of devices. As we, again, I know we're pushing Moore's law, but that's taking off much faster than energy density. So really, we're going to turn our attention from how do I compute faster and faster to how do I make systems more energy efficient. And by offloading computation from your mobile device to the edge of the network with a wireless link in between to share data very quickly, that looks like to be one of the best engineering choices going forward. And a lot of the architecture around 5G is geared around enabling that application.
Yeah, to Ryan's point, that we love it when we push Moore's law, right? As Intel, obviously, we're very happy about doing that because we want to meet that challenge. But to that point, right, I mean, compute as 5G exceeding the capabilities, it's always a question what you're doing. I think Ryan dissected that very nicely. The power that you have in the data center is probably never going to be exceeded by something, I wouldn't say never, but it's not going to be exceeded at what they have at the edge or what a mobile network will provide you. But the question is, what do you need, to Ryan's point? Where do you actually want to have that compute? What type of results do you need from that compute, right? If you need analytics, how real time does it have to be? So the question is, where is the right spot to have that compute and have just as much compute as you need, where you need it? And back to Ryan's point on the power, so critical. I mean, if we listen to what we hear from the operators around the world, sustainability ever more important for them to understand, how they can reduce their power footprint. And that's something that we'll work on as well.
Yeah, thank you, Werner. I actually think this is a great segue into the next question, which I'll kick off with you, Werner, is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about 5G? What is it that people are really missing conceptually?
Well, I think the first one is that a lot of people, and probably maybe the less technology apt ones, are looking at this as just another phone standard, right? So we had 2G, 3G, 4G, and now I'm moving on along, and it's just going to be faster and maybe more speeds, and I can do some gaming on my cell phone, right? That's probably the biggest misconception out there, that it is not a real game changer in terms of how companies will conduct business. As 4G brought us the app world and we started using app more, now you're really getting into the era where you can use the wireless technology to run your manufacturing environments. As Brian alluded to, private wireless networks that really actually take care of how your company, how your manufacturing environment, your hospital can be run wireless. The savings in there are enormous. And that's basically where we really need to open the mind for people to say, hey, there is so much more in those capabilities that come with 5G than just another phone standard.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you, everything you said. Brian, let's give you a chance to weigh in here. Do you think there are other things that people are missing or misconceptions about 5G?
Yeah, I mean, I build off of what Werner just said. I mean, there's kind of two things for me. There's a business misconception, there's a technology misconception. So technology misconception is not surprising. We've marketed 5G out there. So a bunch of people see 5G on their phones and think they're actually experiencing 5G when they're not, right? So from a technical standpoint, true millimeter wave 5G is mind-blowing, right? I mean, our 5G network is like 1.2 gigs down, 450 megs up. If you've never experienced that on your phone, and there's limited phones that can do this, right? To download something that is gigs and gigs of data in the snap of a finger is crazy to experience. Okay, so that's one. But there's a technical trade-off to that, which is we're using different frequency bands. There's shorter lengths because of that. It doesn't go through walls and things quite in the same way. And so this idea of small cell and kind of what that all means, I don't think people have fully grasped yet. On the business side, to what Werner was saying. The idea that this is a continuous improvement for my business is a great misconception, right? This will help me take 10% of my cost out. I can combine these, great, right? But what I would encourage you, if you go back to say 4G, there's plenty of companies that could have invented, the next Uber or Netflix or what have you. But that seeing around the curve and saying, what new customer experience is this going to unlock? What new market is this going to unlock? What position can I get into? That's really where you got to push your thinking. So you don't get caught into how do I take my current business and incrementally improve it, but what net new things is this going to open up? And that requires spending some more time and just rolling around in it and kind of really thinking about the customer, thinking about the client, the experience and so forth in a way that gets beyond the network technology.
Absolutely. Ryan, let's give you a chance to weigh in and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, so I attack this more from the engineering standpoint. There's a business and technology misconceptions, but on the technology side, it really is the perception that 5G is a monolithic solution, that there's only one thing that 5G is bringing to the table. When really I break it down into 4 pillars. Network virtualization, so physical boxes and physical servers that were single purpose, all those capabilities are being collapsed into a virtualized server environment that now is much lower cost to deploy and operate. 2, low latency. So ultra low latency the communications available through the network. So you can have real-time decisions for very complicated problems. And then finally, the two technologies that I believe are core to 5G are millimeter wave, so very high frequency beamforming, and then massive MIMO, which is basically taking your existing cellular bands and ramping up performance, 10x increasing capacity, increased range, maybe up to 4x, with these also wireless beamforming technologies. And that all four of those are providing value both to the network operator and to the end user in terms of what they experience in terms of their network performance and applications.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask you the next question, I'm gonna kick that off with you, Ryan. I just want to remind everybody that's in attendance that you can feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A box below, and we will do our best to answer them in real time. But Ryan, I wanted to ask you, with any breakthrough technology, it's obviously critical to be out of the gate fast. So how is your business, or how are you helping businesses lead in the 5G race?
Yeah, so we founded Skylark to essentially democratize 5G technology. And so we focus primarily on long-range opportunities to leverage all these technological benefits and design these networks and solutions holistically for long-range operation, things suburban and rural 5G applications. So bringing that benefit further and further out from the city. That's really what our core business is focused on. And we do that both through innovating new technologies on top of the wireless standards and going beyond those current standards, as well as developing open RAN solutions, so more open interfaces and open equipment that allows you to build a more open network environment that now has technical parity with the closed environments typically offered by large OEMs. So, we view this transition from 4G to 5G as opening up the door for some disruption of your traditional OEMs in terms of providing whole network solutions in the 5G space.
Yeah, absolutely. Werner, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our world is technology, obviously, and as an infrastructure provider to that, right? So a lot of things that Ryan said, we're at the heart of as well. Obviously, we're driving the open radio access. On the other hand, we power about 50% of the base stations around the world for 5G now, in collaboration with our large partners like Nokia and Ericsson, right? That are equally innovative. So it's actually fantastic to see how the democratization of the network is fueling this innovation, and how even players that have been there traditional are diving in now. They're looking at their solutions. So it's really fantastic to see how, as you get to standards and as you get to a broader ecosystem, the innovation flourishes. And companies like Skylark come out there with their solutions. You get the more traditional players that are obviously powering these large universal networks that we need to have. And then you get, Accenture in there actually helping with the use cases and bringing it together from an integration perspective and from really driving the business. So that's what we're in the back end doing. And we're working it on all levels with all of these companies to making sure that the ecosystem really flourishes around 5G.
Absolutely. And Brian, would you like to weigh in as well?
No, I mean, the thing I would say, we're spending a lot of time, like I said, we build out our own 5G network. That was quite the experience. We're only the second one in Texas, privatized 5G network through millimeter wave and so forth. We learned a lot from that, right? And the partnership with the cloud companies here is, I think, very important. The Amazons and Microsofts and Googles of the world, who are all building their own edge compute stack. And I find it, as I'm sure many people on the call do, always funny how we go, mainframe to client server to cloud, let's push it all to the edge. So the pendulum is very much in the let's get to the edge right now. And I think that edge computing and a lot of the things that Ryan talked about and Werner talked about in terms of AI and so forth, that's really where a lot of the business value can potentially be had, especially the low hanging fruit. And so, yeah, spending a lot of time on those kinds of things, but it's a bit the wild, wild west to some extent, right? Even though the standard's set and there's, you can go and get it installed and so forth. I mean, little things, we were the first kind of going through the billing system. So we got all sorts of billing issues and other things. I mean, you're just plowing new ground, right? And that's what makes it, I think, so exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead,
I'll
Brian.
say another pitch for Brian. The ecosystem needs systems and solutions integrators. And so actually putting together full end-to-end solution is critical for showing what can be done and figuring out where do we need to grow from here. So, shout out to Brian and the team at Accenture for doing that.
It's a broad ecosystem, right? You have the Ericssons and the Intels and the Amazons, the AT&Ts, and you go bring all these things together. There's a lot that has to happen to make that work. So yeah, I thank you for that, Ryan.
Sticking with you, Brian, what are some of the key challenges that your businesses or clients are seeing when it comes to the 5G expansion and adoption?
Talent is always one, right? Finding the folks that can really do it is probably the singular biggest challenge. Figuring out the what, right? And I know it seems very simple, the use cases, right? We talked about that, but to some people it's like, oh, could it be robotics? Is it XR? Could it be AI? What do we need to go do? Where are we going to get the money? And if any senior level business executive is asking that question, because it's not going to be cheap, right? I mean, it's very expensive to go roll out right now a 5G network and say, do I get ahead of it and privatize and roll it out in my plant? Do I wait for the carriers? Is it gonna, there's all sorts of decisions that have to happen there. And so I think that the gotchas is, do I want to be a leader in this space, right? Do I want to kind of get out ahead of this, take that risk, drive that innovation, be a first mover, or am I kind of waiting for broad adoption and I'm going to kind of come back in the back into this and say, okay, here's the net thing I'm going to go after. And I don't know if there's a perfect answer on that. It depends on the company, depends on the business and so forth, their risk profile. But that to me is one of the things people are really struggling with. The talent, can I get the people in? And if I have that, what am I really going to go do that's going to justify the cost, the opportunity and so forth? Is it a big enough, bold enough idea?
Right. Ryan, do you have any other thoughts around that?
Yeah, so one of our core missions is to, as I mentioned before, to bring the benefits of 5G technology to the rural market. And so for all the applications that we've been talking about, it doesn't do any good if those applications only work when you're in a city. And the moment you drive a little bit further out into rural Texas, all of my applications stop working. My self-driving car doesn't drive anymore or slows down. We want these applications to be available on demand everywhere in the world. And so, we focus on how do we take those technologies and build them holistically to support long-range rural applications. And that's a challenge. It is very challenging, and that's one of the reasons why we focus on it. But I think that making sure that this ecosystem is seamless wherever you go is one of the challenges that systems integrators, network operators, everybody's going to have a hand in addressing that challenge.
And Werner, I was just coming to you.
Yeah. I got to jump on there on what Ryan said about your autonomous car slowing down or stopping, right? That's where we got to continue developing, right? I could hook you up, Brian, with our Mobileye division, and they will tell you that ain't happening ever, right? So they believe things have to be autonomous. So where do you actually stop with that connectivity? It goes back to our earlier conversation. How much compute, how much intelligence do I have to have in something at the edge so it can be self-containing and continue even if you lose connectivity? It's just as much a conversation as to what Brian said earlier, the talent pool. We are all fishing in that same talent pool. It doesn't matter if it's us Intel building technology or if it's Brian advising around it and integrating it, or if it's Ryan in developing new solutions on his end, right? And this is where I think we want to also bring everybody along and say, hey, this is something where we really need to have everybody join us in these opportunities to develop talent, to develop the talent in your own company, to help with community colleges, universities, making sure that we learn more about these technologies, and then we infuse more into like artificial intelligence and these areas that will be the future for us, to make sure that we can really leverage these capabilities broadly across the industry. So I think that's a real effort that goes beyond anybody that is on the panel here and everybody that's listening, and we all need to do that. We all need to help along that.
We have had a question come in from Chris. Do you see opportunity to expand 5G connectivity in rural Texas with funding from the infrastructure bill? We'll start with Werner, and then Ryan, I'm sure you are chomping at the bit.
Yeah, it's actually a great question. I'm sitting right here at the Greater Houston Partnership, and together with the Dallas Fed, we have a conversation this morning about broadband and the new broadband office at the Texas Comptroller, just talking about that. So what is the money that's going to come down out of the infrastructure bill? How much will be appropriated? But not just what just got passed, but also what has already been appropriated. We know out of the COVID relief funds, there was money put available, and this is all now being transferred into what can be done, what shall be funded. But let's be honest, right? This is usually not a very fast process. So we can't wait till all this money comes down and sit at the sideline and say, oh, once this is all figured out, we go forward and we'll connect rural communities to us. No, we have to support that already with technology like Ryan described it, that Skylark was doing. With the availability that we have today already with some of the operators, and particularly when you talk about equitable access, when you talk about connecting the unconnected, there's actually great programs out there that the operators have to connect people at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum at a cheaper ways to bring the connectivity to them. But all of that together, I'm really looking forward, and I'm excited about what I heard this morning, what the Office of the Comptroller is trying to put out there to make this quick, as fast as possible.
Thanks, Werner. This just happens to be the day that you had that meeting, so that's wonderful. So, Ryan, I know you're ready to dive in here. I can see it all over your face.
I'll keep this one short. I mean, the short answer is yes. There's a huge opportunity from the infrastructure bill that was just passed. But Werner's exactly right. The pandemic revealed that there was an underlying structural inequity in our infrastructure, and in particular in our communications infrastructure, for even in the city and in rural areas. It wasn't just limited to outside of the city. Key populations couldn't get high-speed connectivity at a reasonable enough price where they lived. And so that has led to programs at the state level, at the federal, and even at the federal level, multiple different agencies have different programs to address this from multiple areas, whether building fiber out from the city to provide that backbone for 5G systems, or providing direct funding or subsidies for wireless 5G systems in rural areas. That's all happening, and that's a really exciting place to be for everybody here on this panel, I think.
It's always good to see when someone's so excited about what it is that they do. So it shows how much you love what you do, and I appreciate your transparency there. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I have a vacation home in Michigan, right? And it didn't have cable connectivity, right? There wasn't high-speed internet around. And so I had to pay $1,000 to have cable brought 500 feet, right? In order to have high-speed internet. And what it revealed to me was that high-speed internet is as much utility as water is today, right? Because when you say I don't have high-speed internet, you can't work remotely there or be teleconferencing there. You can't watch a lot of TV now there, right? I mean, all of these things start to build up. Now I'm lucky I can afford to go do that, but it highlights to me the really the inequity there in terms of ensuring, just like we did in the early 20th century to say rural power and electricity. We need to ensure that the whole country is electrified. To me, it's the same thing. So yes, there's opportunity in the infrastructure bill, but it's not going to be the whole picture. We got to continue to do that because it's a social issue. It's not just a technology issue or something like that. It really can dictate your job opportunities, your education opportunities, and so forth. So Gabby Rowe in Operation Connectivity, which is, I believe, heavily involved, Werner, with the work here at the GHP today.
He was the moderator this morning.
The moderator, yeah. So she and I have talked about this numerous times, right? And so if you're passionate about it, I would suggest reaching out to her and Operation Connectivity, because they're really the ones looking at how do we get the state of Texas, broadband access is the term they're using, quickly. So I think it's a great initiative.
And what do you think is one capability that your business is either experiencing or developing that you're really excited about on the heels of that question around the infrastructure bill?
What is my business?
Talk about it. Yes, Brian.
But yeah, I don't. don't necessarily depend on the infrastructure bill in order to go and make our investments and so forth. But what I think it's going to lead to is a couple of things. One, a lot of energy transition investments and capital, right? As well as the communication investments. And I don't know exactly what the intersection of those things are. I'm missing a brainstorming session right now with my team that's all around e-mobility and the future of autonomous cars, the future of electric cars and so forth. And I don't know perfectly what the intersection of these things are, but I sense that there's a lot of opportunity there that this will create as we see simultaneously our green infrastructure increase at the same time as our communication infrastructure increases. What opportunities does that unlock? That's really what I'm heavily focused on.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, what about you? Is there anything that your business is experiencing or developing that you're really excited about right now?
Yeah, I mean, it is simple for us. We are developing next generation wireless radios for 5G applications. And our focus is on product release next year and getting that into customers' hands. So we're really excited to see them deploy it and provide that connectivity in places they haven't had it before. So lining up those projects and then delivering the total solution from equipment to the network design to the systems that make it run is really what we're all about. And that is all happening right now. So definitely excited about that.
Mm-hmm. And Werner, I know we've made some announcements, but is there anything that we've either announced or that we can talk about in development that you're really excited about?
Well, I would say the biggest excitement is really where we can make a difference right now. So we have some, innovative projects that we're working with companies like AWS and others, where we really look at unconnected communities and say, hey, how can we help them right now? So with CBIS, using Wi-Fi solutions in simple areas, right? Where we go and it help a school district connect, a community that doesn't have access right now. That doesn't sound like much, but you know what? There's maybe 1,000 families in a community that did not have connectivity that we can bring in interim solutions till the money flows, till we have all of this wonderful government money flow out and work the bigger things. In the meantime, we got 1,000 families connected to the school, to telehealth, get them access to learning, get them access to job opportunities that they can find. And we're doing some of these projects, and I'm really excited that we can do that. Almost as much, or sometimes even more when you see the smiling faces, is what we're doing on the technology development when, we're working with, our teams on what's the 6G standard going to look like with 3GPP and other entities that do it. That's already in progress, right? As we're rolling out 5G, we've got people talking 6Gs already, back in the office and figuring out what the next standard's going to look like in 10 years. So very exciting stuff.
And 5G is expected to create as many as 16 million new jobs in the workforce. So how are you making sure that your workforce is ready for these roles? Are you creating new roles, adopting previous roles that are already in place? And that's for you, Werner.
Well, you're part of it. creating new jobs, right? Heather recently joined us at Intel as we were able to, build out, create more jobs in that environment and educating and training. We need a lot more, back to Brian's point, the skill set. This requires new skill set, and it requires a lot more of the modern day developers, biz dev. We need to figure out how we can actually multiply that in the communities, particularly the communities that we live and work in. And we have a program right now actually that we're rolling out with community colleges across the country, where we're trying to educate more people around artificial intelligence. And obviously what we've done for many years, all the work that we're doing about the STEM programs, all the way down to high schools and fueling that need for the upskill workforce that we need in all these areas, for sure.
And Ryan, with same question for you, and again, it goes on the heels of the excitement around what you're going to be able to accomplish with the infrastructure bill coming into place, along with all the 5G capabilities. So, how do you see getting prepared for new roles? Do you see expansion of roles or redefining roles that are in your purview right now? That was Ryan.
Oh.
Yeah,
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah. So I think, because we are a startup, we're not going to have the same kind of impact as Intel or Accenture. But one of the things that I think they both touched on is workforce training and building up the skill base. And for us, we're very locally focused. So how do you build up the skilled engineering base in Houston so that we can design and build 5G systems locally with domestic supply chains? And that's an issue that we are very, very focused on. So ranging from internship programs, engagement with development programs at universities. There are universities that use our equipment for education as well as research. And so that is what we can do, I guess, in our more local viewpoint, that I think is we are here today because of this transition to 5G technologies and systems. And so I think we're just an example of that transformation that's happening in many, many locations across many, many different companies.
Thank you. And Brian, how about at Accenture?
Yeah, we're always creating jobs, so I have no doubt about that. And there'll be a whole kind of ecosystem, right, in terms of the people who are deep on 5G and network, the people then who are deep on edge and cloud, the people who are then focused on change management and kind of helping clients. I mean, there'll be a whole range of different things. I think what comes to mind for me is kind of two things. One, that, right, and I'll tell you a quick story that I think will bring this to life, which is finding the real talent and building that out. I went to a steakhouse, and if you've ever been there, where they have all the steaks and they had a lobster in the middle, right? And they hold up the lobster, it's live, it's moving all around, and they're like, and we have lobster. And so I was like, hey, can I get a lobster? Yeah, that would be great, but I'd love to choose my lobster. And then the guy hurries away, comes back, and he goes, I'm sorry, sir, all of our lobster is frozen. I was like, what? Like, you just showed me this live lobster. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, the chef has agreed to cook the demo lobster for you if you wish, sir. And I was like, well, so it's, to me, that speaks to the talent, right? For every one person who really gets 5G, we've got lots of others that we need to upskill, the frozen lobsters, right? We need to upskill into that area. So how do we do that? And I don't know that we fully have the answer to it, but one of the ways we're going to use it is technologies that I think 5G will also enable, which is things like virtual reality. I just got to spend some time in the Facebook metaverse, and connecting with the team and so forth. It's pretty damn cool, right? And so the idea that we can train folks through that kind of technology is also exciting. And then finally, I think it's going to unlock a lot of opportunities at the kind of junior college level and the apprentice level as well, right? You talk about network, sort of installing all this infrastructure and so forth. And so we're looking at a lot at apprentice networks and upskilling and so forth like that, working with local community colleges as well, which I think opens up a whole new set of employees, which especially right now with the labor market shortage is in great demand.
Right, and with the expansion and with 5G and all of the explosion in the marketplace, Brian, do you see any regulatory issues getting in the way of how high we can go with 5G?
Yes, I'm sure there are regulatory, political, like all sorts of different issues that are out there. I won't comment on any specific kind of regulatory thing. I will kind of talk about how we had to install a 5G base station in our hub, and it's got to be at a certain height and elevation for health and safety. It's got to be certified by the FCC. We've got a network cabinet that's owned by AT&T that we can't touch, or it's a federal crime. Like, there is some things about having network infrastructure that have real security implications as well, and real challenges. And that I don't know what the regulation will be. I'm sure the innovation will be faster than the regulation, but I have to imagine that there will be a lot around security that will come into place, and a lot that will come into, well, if all these autonomous cars are running on these networks and the network gets hacked and goes down, or whatever the case is, what are the implications? So I think security is probably going to be one of the top areas.
Thanks, Brian. And Werner, I want to ask the same question to you as well. You've been in a lot of these meetings recently. Are you seeing, any regulatory flags that are coming up, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you see, and regulatory can be in many aspects. So, I mean, obviously, one aspect that we've already seen is, around the security aspect and the geopolitical dimensions that come with that, right? So, who's allowed to be on the network as a device manufacturer and can participate in that? And we see that on both ends, right? How markets are being driven. And I also saw there was a question in the chat here about what we can learn from other markets, for instance, Korea or China, that have started the 5G game ahead of us. And that's part of that, right? Their experience and seeing what's possible, what may have to be limited. And then you also have definitely another aspect of the acceptance of technology, right? There's a lot of people that say, oh, this sounds all great, but I don't know, I don't want all these radios on my building. I don't want the radio right next to me, right? No. It sounds good, but put it on the neighbor's property, not on mine, right? So those are also aspects that are going to come of it as we learn, as the technology rolls out. Ideally, if we look at these other countries, we understand that infrastructure is a competitive advantage, and 5G is part of infrastructure and is a huge competitive advantage that we need to make available. And we need to do it in a sustainable way. We need to do it in a way that it is not harmful or the least harmful if possible. And everything has, their ups and downs on it, but that's what we need to look at. And I'm sure, as Brian said, the regulators will catch up with us. When they caught us, we talk 6G and we do the next thing. So I think this is how innovation and the innovation cycle works, right?
Yep, just stay ahead of it. Stay ahead of the game. Before we move to the Q&A, and Werner, thank you for bringing my attention to the question. Ryan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you've seen in the last decade a real shift through two administrations now in the way that they regulate and make available new 5G spectrum. So imagine the challenge is I want to build new buildings because there's huge demand or huge opportunity, but there's no land available to build buildings on, and the permitting process is stopping you. The clearing and making available for auction as well as leased use of mid-band 5G spectrum has completely changed the market overnight. So within the last 2 years, you've seen this explosion in wireless services and devices because of the citizens band radio service and the light licensing that's available for spectrum, essentially land in that space. And that is enabling 5G build-outs, both by large national networks and also smaller, more regional networks. We're kind of late to the game in the US with making that mid-band spectrum available, but I think this administration, and again, this is a non-political issue, has realized that we're late, and they're moving as quickly as they can to make more and more spectrum available. And I think that's only going to improve the experience and decrease the costs for 5G connectivity going forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll go to the Q&A question from Mark Kotzer. Ryan, we'll stick with you. So the question is, what can we learn from other markets, for example, South Korea, where 5G is further along in its use and adoption?
Yeah, I'm going to stick to almost exactly what I just said. We were late to the game to making mid-band spectrum available and wide channels that are clean of legacy systems available for use for 5G. You're only starting to see the beginning of that rollout of that ecosystem, and you're going to start to see that ramp up over the next 4 years very significantly as you get tier 1 nationwide build-outs of mid-band 5G networks. So that's going to be your day and night. My phone says 5G today, but I'm not going to experience 5G everywhere until those networks are live and operational. And that, I think that is what we saw happen in other countries, and now we can expect that to happen in the US.
Right. Brian, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I remember when, the time would have been, maybe it was in the 2005 range, when I think European countries were kind of leading the pack in terms of 3G rollout, and the US was behind and we hadn't done enough, and that was all accurate. But we ended up catching up, and what we created that I thought was really powerful is we created the Ubers and the Netflix and the hyperscale business on top of that infrastructure. So I think there's a lot we can learn from other countries, and I do think there's a lot other countries may learn from us as well in terms of how this rolls out to where those big opportunities are and where the capital goes, right? So yeah, I mean that's I assume I can't predict with any great certainty, but I kind of expect something similar. We'll be behind for a while. We'll then start to catch up. We'll then start to have some net new businesses that come out on top of this. And we will stop talking about 5G, and you'll have Werner and the Intel folks will all be talking about 6G and what's coming next, and getting excited about that.
6G, here we go. Werner, I know you already kind of addressed this a little bit, but we're just about ready to wrap up. So if you have any final thoughts, we'll go around with everybody, but we'll start with Werner. Any just final thoughts around what we've talked about today and 5G in general?
Yeah, I think the message here is really clear. Embrace it. It's here. It's rocking and rolling. And if you're a technologist in whatever industry you're in today, spend some time in figuring out, what's around the curve, as Brian said, right? What's the game changer in what you have in utilizing and what you can have in utilizing these new technologies that are available for your business. And back to the South Korea question, right? We saw some interesting responses, with COVID, how they, for instance, put autonomous robots in malls everywhere that make sure that people kept their distances, right? And those things. It's interesting to see how it can be innovated and how an operator like SKT there actually plays a role in this innovation and creates their own ecosystem again around solutions that they then bring out. So for the operators, and we haven't talked a lot about them here on the call today, it's a big opportunity to expand their business and be out there with new services. And that's what I think everybody needs to look at. What can we get out of this? What is the jump forward that we can do with this technology?
Thank you, Werner. Ryan, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think I'll end with this. I think aside from Skylark, but for all the companies that are playing in this space, we're just getting started. We're the nationwide 5G network buildouts are not done yet. And those are only going to improve going forward. There's a concrete pathway to performance improving across the board for everybody. And so over the next several years, you're going to see the capabilities and the applications that are available on 5G networks explode. And so you want to be prepared for that and think of what can I do with this opportunity, or how do I be a part of that wave, depending on which side of the market you're on.
Thank you, Ryan. And we started with you, Mr. Richards, and we'll go ahead and finish with you here.
All right. Well, I mean, first off, thank you for doing this, Heather. It was fantastic. As I said, the thing that gets me really excited is playing around with our own 5G network here with AT&T and all of our different partners. But when I look at the future and say, where would I want others to focus? It's the intersectionality of big problems the world faces, and what does 5G have a role in that, right? And so, health access, when it comes to things like the energy transition, these are big, societal problems, societal challenges. And my hope is that we're not just creating, a faster version of, of watching Netflix, right? If we went from 4K to 8K and it's on 5G and it's amazing, I'm hoping that it unlocks and that we bring the innovation to unlock solutions around some of these big societal challenges. So look for that intersectionality between those big challenges and network. And I just can't thank enough what Ryan's doing to provide that democratized access to rural environments, and what you guys are doing with Intel to keep pushing us ahead on all of the standards and the computing capability necessary to do this. So thank you again.
Thanks, Brian. And thank you to all the panelists today. We appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is. And we'll go ahead and kick it back over to Chris Matthews for finals.
Heather, thank you so much. And thank you so much to all of our panelists for such an insightful conversation today. Really appreciate it. We will post a recap of this conversation onto the Houston Inno website soon, so be sure to tune in for that. And again, thank you all so much for joining. Have a wonderful afternoon. And again, my thanks to our presenting partner, Accenture, and our founding partners today, the ION, University of St. Thomas, Deloitte, and the Village School. So be sure to check your Beat newsletter later this afternoon. And, please feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have. And until next time, everybody, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.